No Time to Die. Right, so after a 6-year wait, accompanied by an 18-month delay due to the coronavirus pandemic, we have finally got the 25th James Bond film. The film was shot throughout 2019, which is obviously now 2 years ago, and it was originally due for release in April 2020, and then it was delayed to October 2020, and then it was April 2021, and now obviously it's October 2021. And I know there's been a lot of things over the past 18 months regarding streaming things online and watching things in the comfort of your own home instead of going to the cinema. I feel that this film is something that has to be experienced in a proper cinema, and you know what? I'm glad it was, and it was well worth the wait. It really was. And what I do love about the James Bond series, particularly this new one, it's almost all of what we've got left of what you would call event cinema. It's an experience, and that's what I think is particularly significant with it, because you go to watch a James Bond film, but because of the expectations riding on them, but further enhanced by the ones that Daniel Craig has been in, it's just an experience that you just cannot miss. And of course, because we haven't had many opportunities to go to the cinema over the past 18 months because of course, the pandemic, but this is the first one, I think, if you could call it post-pandemic, that we've been able to actually go to the cinema and experience what it is to go to the cinema again, and that's what is particularly special about watching No Time to Die. So Daniel Craig's James Bond films have been a franchise within themselves, and No Time to Die is set just after Spectre, in which James Bond has been out of active service from MI6 for 5 years. However, he is approached by his friend Felix Leiter, who is after Bond's help to pursue a mysterious villain that holds a crucial key to unravelling more of the past and is in possession of dangerous weaponry. If you rewind the clock, Daniel Craig has been playing James Bond since 2006, in which he starred in his first film, Casino Royale. I remember when I watched that film back when I was about 14 years old, and I'm 30 now, so he has been playing this character for 16 years, and since then he's starred in 4 other films, which isn't just No Time to Die, but he's also starred in Quantum of Solace in 2008, Skyfall in 2012, and Spectre in 2015. While we've had James Bond films in the past that have had a beginning and an end within just one film, where Bond girls are disposed of, villains are killed, this one is a conclusion of everything that we've seen so far in the Daniel Craig films, the events that have happened in the other films and the characters that we're introduced to, and it just rounds it all off. And because of that, the narrative scale is absolutely huge. It's almost like I would describe it as an epic. I think what's particularly significant about this one is that we see Bond as a vulnerable character through the story. It's almost like it's the Dark Knight Rises version of James Bond, because he's in retirement, he comes out of retirement, he's older, and you understand the physical limits and the emotional weight that he has on his shoulders beyond anything that we've seen before from James Bond. Because I think what you find with James Bond, particularly the Daniel Craig films, and it's a key aspect of this, of course he's a spy in MI6, it's the mission itself that's relatively straightforward, it's the character arcs and those relationships that make it complex, and that's why there's so much emotional drive riding on this film, because it's of those relationships. It's not necessarily to do with the mission. In fact, the mission is more like a subplot in itself, based on the complex relationship between Bond and Swan, Bond and M, and Swan and other characters as well. So it's just about creating emotional weight. And speaking of James Bond's actual mission within the film, you'll know when you watch this, it bizarrely has ironic ties to world events that have happened over the past 18 months. I'm not going to say anything else, but when you watch it, you'll know what I mean. And just the drama of this film and the character arcs and all those relationships really do match on the same level as the physical demands of this film, because when you watch this, you will probably see that it's probably the most straining in terms of physical requirements of any Bond film that we've seen, because I know that we've had, you know, a lot of action sequences, because of course they are traditionally action films. You could really tell with this one, based on a lot of stunts and based on particular moments within the film, that it probably required Daniel Craig to probably work the hardest he's actually ever worked in a James Bond film. In fact, probably in the entire series. You just saw how gritty and how realistic the action really was. And I think the action sequences really do make Bond still very powerful, but also very vulnerable, because you understand that he is a bit older, that he has been wounded in many ways, but you still recognise him as James Bond, who will still come out on top and win in that battle. And that's what I've always appreciated about Daniel Craig's portrayal of the character, because yes, it's been about emotional weight, but it's also been about physical strain, and you could really see that within this film. So yes, it is probably the most physically intense James Bond film that we've probably ever had. And the film was directed by a guy called Cary Joji Fukunaga. Originally it was meant to be Danny Boyle, but due to creative differences, he departed from the project and Fukunaga took over. And his previous films included the 2011 adaptation of Jane Eyre and the war drama called Beasts of a Nation, but he hasn't done done anything up until now, a film of this magnitude. For him to take a film at this level with so much riding on it, so much emotional weight, so much physical demand, and it was a lot of responsibility. But you know what? I thought he did absolutely superbly. It was absolutely on point. You really understood where this film was going and what it was trying to be. And Fukunaga, I would actually like him to see do another James Bond film in the future, if we ever get another one again. Now onto the performances, starting off with Daniel Craig as James Bond. I said in my other video about ranking James Bond actors from worst to best that I'll always have a bit of a soft spot for Daniel Craig because he was one of the first James Bond actors that I saw in the role, having seen Casino Royale when I was 14 at the time. In this one, it really was the end of an era, and you don't really get that with James Bond because you have, oh, one actor's played him and then that's it, moving on. But they built this up like it really was a defining aspect of the James Bond character that really truly set the tone for a generation who have been watching Daniel Craig for a long time. The whole point is that you really got to understand every single aspect of James Bond that have traumatized him in the past because of everything that happened in Casino Royale. You know, you understood his past a bit more in Skyfall and Spectre, and in this one you understand how a lot of what's happened to him in the past really takes its toll on the present day. You understand how far Bond has really come in this one, and that's what it's been about. It's not just been about Bond killing people or seducing women, but Craig's Bond really gave us a character to follow along with from an emotional perspective, and that's what's been really key about Daniel Craig's performance. And in this one he was just absolutely fantastic. I saw some reviews just after watching this film yesterday that he should be tipped for an Oscar nomination, and to be honest, I would probably agree. He got a BAFTA nomination for Casino Royale, but I think he deserves one for No Time to Die. He really took it to a level that no other actor who's played James Bond before has. And while he isn't necessarily my favourite James Bond actor, he's taken it to a whole new level that's just, like I say, defined a new generation. And if they bring in somebody else as James Bond, then just the emotional weight and expectation on their shoulders will be absolutely ridiculous, because I'm not sure what else they can really do with the James Bond character beyond what Daniel Craig has already achieved and what all the other actors in the past have as well. But it was great to see Daniel Craig back as James Bond for one final time. Another key tradition of the James Bond franchise has been the villain, and in No Time to Die he is played by Academy Award winner Rami Malek, and is actually the third Oscar winner in a row to play a James Bond villain starring Daniel Craig. Of course, the previous ones being Javier Bardem in 2012 from Skyfall, Christoph Waltz in 2015 from Spectre, who also makes an appearance in this film as well, and now Malek. And in recent years, Malek has truly burst onto the scene. A few years ago he won the Oscar for playing Freddie Mercury in Bohemian Rhapsody, and now he's playing a James Bond villain, and his performance as Lucifer Safin, if I've pronounced that correctly, was absolutely exceptional. And you've had a lot of Bond villains over the years that have primarily been driven by revenge, and in this one is no different, because yes, we know Safin has a deadly revenge story. He does it in a whole new way that no other villain has so far. And when you watch this film, I'm not going to spoil it, but when you watch this film you'll know what I mean. He comes across as just this very unusual, weird character who has always been an underlying key piece of the puzzle within the Daniel Craig era of James Bond films. But ultimately Malek's performance I thought was really good, and I did like his character. I don't think he was the best villain I've ever seen, and not the most intimidating, but I thought he did a decent enough job, and I don't think it was as important to create a typical hero versus villain story in comparison to the emotion riding on what we're going to see with James Bond in this one, and that's what I think was more important. Another tradition of James Bond has been the Bond girl, and in this one she's played by Léa Seydoux, who reprises a role after Spectre. Now, we've had Bond girls in the past who have either been completely disposed of by James Bond or who have been a significant and key part in his life, which in many ways has shown an element of female empowerment, and that's something you really get from this film. But Seydoux, just like Daniel Craig, really carries the emotional weight of the story, and while I wouldn't necessarily say that Swan is my favourite Bond girl, she's someone who we definitely follow along with the most compared to any other. And I was a little bit like, I don't know if she should come back or not, but after watching that, I'm really glad she did. As Daniel Craig's Bond films have become a franchise within themselves, as I've already said, you really followed her story as well. Another key character in No Time to Die is Nomi, who is played by Lashana Lynch, and she is basically another 00 who has taken Bond's place in MI6 until he comes out of retirement. And the film definitely does touch upon the politics of female empowerment against men, especially within a James Bond film. I think also it plays on that as almost like banter, that is ultimately a balance between male and female empowerment, that they can coexist together within an action film. And Lynch was absolutely brilliant, and I really, really enjoyed her performance in this as Nomi. And Nomi is probably someone who I think has been on the subject of people's minds for quite a long time, that they need a Bond girl who isn't just this damsel in distress figure, who does have a sense of empowerment within MI6, who is almost on the same level as James Bond. And on the subject of that, Ana de Armas plays an agent within the CIA, and I think her character and the scene that she's in proves one crucial thing in terms of representations of women. She may be attractive in the black gown, as James Bond found out when he saw her, that she can fight and she can train despite being in something like that. So again, it is about female empowerment in this film, and that's what's really key. And of course, who could forget the MI6 team, in which we saw Ralph Fiennes, Naomi Harris and Ben Whishaw return as M, Moneypenny and Q, and they all played another significant part in this film, probably even more so than when they appeared in both Skyfall and Spectre prior to this film, particularly Q, because a lot of this film's emphasis is on technology and science, and you really got to see Q working his magic. And Ben Whishaw, who I think is a brilliant actor anyway, really showed the intellectual ability and intelligence of what Q really is about. So overall, No Time to Die, I would just say this: it was well worth the wait. I think the only criticism I would make of this film was that it was very stretched. It was very, very long, probably too long, I would say. But at times it did feel like the script was a bit overloaded and there was too much going on and all of that. But it was a film that was an absolutely fantastic conclusion to the Daniel Craig James Bond saga, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. So what did you think of No Time to Die? Was it a fitting conclusion to the Daniel Craig James Bond saga? How does it compare to other ones in the past? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, if you did go on to enjoy this video, then please hit the like button and subscribe for more, and have a notification bell tick so you're notified when I upload a new video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care, everybody.